Quiet.
Mr. President-elect,
Go ahead.
can you state
She's asking
categorically,
a question. Don't
Mr.
be
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can
No,
you
I'm
give
not
us a
going to give you a
question?
question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir. Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Dave versus the MSM. I'd like to thank you for joining me today. I hope you'll join us at davejanda.com. We are always available for you there 24/7. Tremendous amount of free public information and videos, but in particular, we have our subscription service at 30 cents a day, which is the biggest bang for the buck. Priceless information, tremendous quantity, not just quantity, but quality of content. Content I cannot go into on any social media platform or on the radio, which is why it is behind the paywall at davejanda.com, 30 cents a day. Try it for a month, $9. If you don't like it, you can get rid of it. But I'm not sure why, because the information we provide you will never get from any other source. And I can confidently say that because I've developed sources for 35 years behind the curtain that I know of no one else has developed that type of network. And this is why I have put people months, years, and in some respects, several decades ahead of the curve. This globalist constructed curve that ends in a brick wall with the shattering of your freedoms and liberties. Today I want to focus on the coup. Let's call this video the game. You know, when I was growing up, there was the game of risk, right? About world events and we're gonna call this the game of coup. Now, I've done the radio show Operation Freedom for 12 and a half years, and the very first show I did, I focused on the fact that there was one political party in our government, United States, called the Republicrats. That's what I called them 12 and a half years ago. And actually, those who know me say I've been telling people that for 30 years. They're owned and operated by a criminal syndicate. The syndicate is run by the banking families. Now, I've mentioned this before, but when I talk about these banking families, I get a lot of blowback, which tells me I'm over the target. See, they think by giving me blowback, I'll shut up. No, it actually makes me rub it in their face more. So, I know it's repetitive, but let's mention their names. Because a lot of people are afraid to mention their names. I get it. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Lazards, the Pinkses, the Warburgs, the Seifs, the Loebs. And at the very top, the Payseur, Payseur. Do a search. Payseur family. Their fingers are in everything, and they happen to trail into such beautiful organizations as BlackRock and the like. Yeah. So, part of the syndicate, and one of their tentacles, is the bought-off lamestream fake media. And when I first started talking about this on the radio, he said, you're being awfully hard on the media. Well, now I don't get that pretty much pushback because people have figured it out. Even out there. In the People's Republic of Ann Arbor, who, when I first started doing these videos, you could hear him scratching at the window because, he's talking and he's trying to educate people about what's really going on. Now you don't hear the scratching, do you? No, of course not. Even they're wise to it, and they know if they've been conned. And actually, the events over the past 3 years, they thought were going to be the final headshot, let's call it. But in fact, what it did, it actually woke people up in their head. Right. It awakened them to, all these people in the independent media talking about this and that. I thought it was conspiracy theory for so long, but in fact, it might be conspiracy, but it's conspiracy reality. I mean, everything we've presented has happened, has come true. Somebody contacted me the other day and said, I listened to Durham's testimony in front of Congress. He said, Dr. Dave, everything he said, you were saying through your sources in 2016 and 2017, early 2017. And everything he said in 2023, Durham, and what I was telling you in 2016 and 2017 was called conspiracy theory and was completely ignored by the bought-off lamestream fake media. And in fact, a completely 180-degree counter-narrative, false, was presented to you by the bought-off lamestream fake media. Now, that shouldn't surprise anybody. There was an intelligence operation called Operation Mockingbird, which was the placement of intelligence assets in every medium market. Which is why you'll see videos of the same verbiage being used in news stories all around the country and every network. Right? Same words, verbatim. It's because it's a script that's based on propaganda, smoke and mirrors, to keep you misinformed, disinformed, and completely uninformed, because if you are uninformed, you are an easier target for these globalist cult scum. William Casey, the director of the CIA back in 1981 under Reagan, said the following, quote, "We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false." Well, there you go. Which brings me to the coup. 24/7 coverage recently on every network, and especially Fox. Oh, there's a coup in Russia, and Putin's going to implode, and he's going to be thrown out of office. He's going to be tried. He's going to be thrown in jail. There's going to be a new regime. All's going to be good. Ukraine's going to take over what's happening in Ukraine. Ukraine's going to win the war. Oh, this is fantastic. It's just a matter of hours. I heard it myself. They say it's just a matter of hours before that Wagner group, the coup in Moscow. Well, I can't think of a better example of the disinformation, misinformation. Zero Hedge wrote this. And remember, well, we'll talk about what I know to be the case. And this is why, being a subscriber at davejanda.com, people were very aware of this very quickly. Putin blasts Wagner treason, betrayal, as clashes erupt in southern Russia. Clashes where there were reportedly no fatalities. So the average person might say, wait a minute. You're going to do a coup and you're not going to have any air power, let alone superiority, in this day and age. It's kind of like having an insurrection without any weapons, right? Yeah, it's not really it. No. So how can you remove Putin and his regime if you don't have any kind of air power, let alone air superiority? We recently discussed this with Commander Scott Snow on our platform. Scott is a former F-14, 16, 18 fighter pilot. Ran operations for the Top Gun program. And he's like, I heard that. And I'm like, what? That this is a coup? Come on. I mean, this isn't like in some tiny third world country where the government doesn't even have any military to speak of. He goes, give me a break. Right. In his first speech addressing the crisis. Now, again, I want you to think of this as professional wrestling political version. Okay? All right. Now, professional wrestling. I was at Detroit Airport once. And this is when Hulk Hogan was big and Andre the Giant, he was a big guy anyway, was big, right? And they had this death match. I'm in the Detroit airport, sitting there waiting for a plane. And there are all these people, like right across the hallway, and cameras and flash. I'm like, what the heck's going on here? So I get up and I walk over there, and here's Hulk Hogan sitting in a chair. And sitting right next to him, they just had this death match, right? And he like the night before. And here's Hulk Hogan sitting there, and there's Andre the Giant. And they're sitting right next to each other, and they're joking around. They're having a great time, right? But the rest of the country thinks, oh, they had this death match, and oh boy, I'll tell you, it was, these two guys, man, they'd never be around each other after that. What that meant. Sitting there telling jokes. And think of this coup as professional wrestling. In his first speech addressing the crisis of Wagner's armed rebellion on a Saturday morning, Russian President Vladimir Putin has vowed to crush what he called Yevgeny Prigozhin's betrayal. Okay, so let's just substitute Vladimir Putin for Hulk Hogan and Yevgeny Prigozhin as Andre the Giant. Okay? All right. Confirmed armed clashes between regular military forces and Wagner fighters are occurring within Russian territory. This has been reported extensively. Interesting, they're having clashes, but no casualties. Yeah. It has been reported that all hell is breaking loose in this first significant moment in over 2 decades of Putin's iron grip on power being threatened by armed mutiny. Any internal turmoil is a deadly threat to our statehood and to us as a nation. This is a blow to Russia and to our people, Putin said. This battle, when the fate of our people is being decided, requires the unification of all forces. What we have faced is betrayal, extravagant ambitions, and personal interests led to treason, Putin said of Prigozhin. All those who consciously stood on the path of betrayal, who prepared an armed rebellion, stood on the path of blackmail and terrorist methods, will suffer inevitable punishment before the law and before our people, quote, Putin said. Okay, so much for the death match. Within 12 hours, it went from a coup to, we're gonna have a resolution to this, to let's all join hands and sing Kumbaya in a harmonious manner, and Prigozhin, we're gonna let you off the hook, and you can just hang out in Belarus with anybody you want now at this point. Prigozhin exiled to Belarus in exchange for peace. Criminal charges dropped. When was the last time Putin dropped? Look, Putin ain't a choir boy, okay? He's a horrible guy, all right? And he's a mean, vindictive guy. I know somebody who had dealt with him for decades. The person I knew is no longer alive. But I can tell you, the person I knew was really powerful and really connected and actually could deliver the goods, okay? Let's just put it that way. As far as muscle, okay? And I can tell you that this friend of mine had an animosity toward Vladimir Putin like you couldn't believe, and Putin did of him. And my friend is no longer alive. And I'm not saying Putin caused it, but I can tell you that Putin did everything in his power to make my friend's life hell. He ain't a choir boy, okay? If you're on the wrong side of him, anybody who would lead a coup, come on. Exile? We're going to drop charges? If it was legit, that wouldn't have happened. This entirely bizarre, slightly less than 24-hour short-lived coup attempt has just gotten even stranger given the terms of the truce, which evidently caused Yevgeny Prigozhin to announce his Wagner fighter columns would turn around and go back to their bases. This has now been confirmed. Prigozhin will leave Russia for Belarus, and criminal charges against him will be dropped. His fighters will be allowed to sign contracts with the Russian military. In summary, 1. Charges were dropped against Prigozhin, who will leave Russia for Belarus. 2. Wagner fighters who didn't take part in the uprising will sign contracts. Wagner fighters who did take part aren't going to be charged. So here's what I said. This is what I sent to folks. Right when, as this was happening, before the reconciliation. By the way, do you find it interesting that this occurred when, I believe it's August 22nd through 24th, the BRICS are having a meeting about the establishment of new reserve currency to replace the dollar. Okay? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and then Saudi Arabia's involved. There are, I don't know now, dozens of other countries involved. Indonesia, Malaysia, right? So you don't think that, okay. So this is what I sent to folks. Let's try this scenario for the coup. Putin fabricated and marketed the coup, I think of professional wrestling, to scam NATO and the U.S. simultaneously, as well as to simultaneously remove questionable military hierarchy inside the Russian military complex to identify who would go along with the coup. This coup attempt simultaneously conned Ukraine into believing Russia and Putin were in fact weak and imploding, which then Ukraine exposed their counteroffensive and who there were their allies in this counteroffensive. This Putin operation had the added benefit of receiving money from NATO, I believe, and the U.S. to fund the coup. Hey, that $6.2 billion that the U.S. recently found and then gifted to Ukraine could actually have been laundered from the United States taxpayers to Prigozhin, who, by the way, Prigozhin has a 32-year friendship with who? Vladimir Putin. Yeah. You see, I think if they were at the airport together, let's say, like when I experienced in Detroit with Hulk Hogan and Andre Giant, Prigozhin and Putin would be sitting next to each other laughing. Now they can use that money, so that was given to Prigozhin to institute this, that he conned that he was going to do a coup through NATO and through U.S. intelligence. They can use that money that they got, and sure, Prigozhin will get a cut, I'm sure. Hey, Putin, hey, what do you want, 30%, 40%? I'll even, hey, call me a good guy. You can buy a nice beach, buy a nice house, beautiful house, mansion in Belarus. What do you want, 50%? What'd you get from those guys? You got $6 billion? Give you a 3. Yeah, come on. You earned it. It was a death match. Yeah. And now they can use some of the money that wasn't given to the uprisers to go after Ukraine further. In other words, Putin's playing chess while Ukraine, Biden, the CIA, and the U.S. military are playing Go Fish. And everything that I propose while this coup before the settlement occurred has played out, right? Prigozhin's doing fine. And now, right? Putin's doing great. Ukraine's been exposed. And somebody made a whole lot of money. Prigozhin and Putin. And then it came out that, yeah, U.S. intelligence was involved in all this. They got conned. They got used. U.S. intelligence knew of Wagner plot many days in advance and briefed Congress. From Zero Hedge, U.S. intelligence officials knew well in advance that Wagner head Yevgeny Prigozhin was planning to mount an armed rebellion against the Russia's military's top commanders. Prigozhin didn't get along with several of the Russian commanders, felt that they were inept. And what's now come out? Several of the Russian commanders who Prigozhin had targeted have now reportedly been removed. As I mentioned in my note to people, long before this settled, a number of hours before it settled, remember what I said, remove questionable military hierarchy inside Russia's military complex. Well, reportedly, when they found, there were some people in the Russian military high up that when they heard that this coup attempt was going to happen, it smoked them out. Exactly what Putin wanted to do. And his buddy, Prigozhin, helped them. So they smoked out people that potentially could be harmful in the future in Russia. 2, they got a whole lot of money. 3, they exposed the Ukraine's counteroffensive. And 4, they made Biden and the CIA and the military, U.S. military and NATO, all look like idiots. They were marks. Congressional leaders were even briefed days before to the Saturday events after U.S. intelligence reportedly observed the Wagner Group mustering forces. Describing the congressional briefings, the media whore The New York Times reported that the U.S. spy agencies had indications days earlier that Prigozhin was planning something. Yeah, right, because they funded it. They supported it. So ends the game of coup. Folks, number 1, go back to William Casey said, we'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. The way they institute their disinformation program is through the bought-off lamestream fake media. Every aspect. Every newspaper, TV station, TV network, syndicated radio network, at a minimum is controlled opposition, and at a maximum is complete propaganda. You would save yourself a lot of time by not watching any of the above, listening to any of the above. And this is why those of us in the independent media have been targeted, censored, suppressed, oppressed. I mentioned this in a little different video before, but it bears mentioning here too. Their censorship game is not getting better. It's getting worse. And it's getting worse because they are panicked and desperate. Why? Because people like you have taken the information that is presented on this platform and several others and have networked it to your friends and families, and more people have become awakened. And what the cult realizes is once there is a breaking point, and we might have even passed it at this point, where enough people become awakened that things change drastically for them. And that's what they're panicked about. And that's why they've upped their oppression vice as it relates to censorship. Alex Newman, the senior editor of the New American Magazine, if you haven't seen it, you need to look at it. Great print, and also it's the best on the internet. And the newamerican.com is their website. And he has a TV show, and he asked me to guest host it for him while he was out of the country. And on a particular day, and I did. And the title of my show was called The Censorship Industrial Complex, where I dissected the censorship industrial complex. Here are the tentacles, and then here are the weapons they use to implement their censorship agenda. And here are some examples. And I got great feedback from the audience about it. Oh, it's fantastic. And you might say, well, gosh, I haven't seen it. Well, if you want to see it, actually, it's on my website, free, davejanda.com. In the film strip area, it's the first thing. All those in the film strip are free, and several other videos are free on there. And hit that and watch it, because it really dissects the entire issue. And I speak about some of the interactions I've had with my censorship. Well, here we go. Here's another interaction I had, or example. I went to send the link after the show to our subscribers at davejanda.com. And we have an email service called MailChimp. And it was blocked. I got a notification it was blocked. I'm like, what the heck? Next thing I know, I find out that, they said this might limit your ability to send emails. Well, it limited it completely because they suspended the account, turns out. So I appealed it and said, first of all, terms of service, you got to tell me what I did wrong. Tell me what was wrong. But here, what got censored? My show on that other platform called the Censorship Industrial Complex. That's not an indication of their strength or power. It is an indication that their disinformation campaign is failing and that they are panicked because of the mass awakening. And you have a lot to do with that. Don't stop. I know what we hear, so much of what we hear is so negative, that things are not going well, that we've lost. The cult has won. No, I don't believe it. And that's not hopium. It's the truth. I thank you for joining me today. We are available 24/7 at davejanda.com. We hope you will come by and at minimum look at the free information, but I hope you'll become a subscriber. It's 30 cents a day. It's expensive to run a website, to have a very secure website. I cannot speak about issues on any public platform or on the radio on a number of issues, and in particular, everything in depth. And that's what I do on the subscription side. It's priceless information. It puts you months, years, and in some cases, decades ahead of the curve. I thank you for joining me today. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.